and thank you so much for taking your time to join us live right here. I'm a new guest. I was thinking I would never introduce the show, but yes, it's always a pleasure, and I'm so much excited to have you guys back live on this morning news. I'm just filling in a gap for the next couple of days, I hope, and it's always my pleasure to have you guys right here. My name is Tonio, and I'm excited to be back on set with your gal,
Nicole Madzio. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Tonio, after a long while.
It's been a long time, but you know how it is. Like, it's always good to be back on TV. It's always good to be back on news.
Definitely.
Yeah, and today we are jumping straight into today's leading newspapers headlines, and I'll start off with the daily news that I have right here. It's Zimbabwean crisis at tipping point. That's the leading headline that we have today from the daily news. It says that as skyrocketing prices, inflation reignite the 2008 fears. With Zimbabwe's official inflation now nearly 100% and the plummeting RTGS dollar hitting a staggering 10 to the United States dollar on the black market yesterday, there are fears that the country is fast reaching a tipping point from which there is no return. The daily news. Also, I think on the daily news I've got government delays Bulawayo devolution. The devolution of the country's two major cities, Harare and Bulawayo, is set to suffer further delays as the government has indicated. This comes as local government minister July Moyo told the senator recently that the two cities were lagging behind in the implementation of the devolution. According to section 271 of the country's constitution, a province should have proportional representatives to make up a metropolitan councils, of which the two cities have none. I must admit that we have had difficulties in the terms of the devolution part of the constitution. So this has been one of the much touted points as far as ZANU-PF and MDC have been campaigning to make sure that there's going to be devolution amongst most of these cities. But now we are seeing that the government is saying that it's not going to be able to actually fast track or implement this devolution, mainly because they're saying that according to section 271 of the country's constitution, a province should have proportional representatives to make up a metropolitan council. So I think this has been a major setback that they're facing. Before I jump into the next story from my daily news, Nicole, I think you've been too quiet for too long. I'll give you
my question is on the devolution program. When the government when they started talking about it, did they think it was going to work? Was it their intention?
And this problem is a new problem that they're now discovering, or they
already knew, or maybe someone is about to call them out. So
interesting comment.
Food for thought.
It's not like they've just discovered that we now have a problem all of a sudden, because this is already it was always known. But I think for me, this is a very interesting one as well. On the page 2 of the daily news, we will not fast track MOPA bill, says Ziambi. Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Minister Ziambi says that government will not fast track debate on the maintenance of peace and order, which is the MOPA bill. Ziambi said that they will give parliamentarians enough time despite the country's facing crippling protests due to the current economic situation. It's like, you know what, we're not in a rush to implement the MOPA bill. We still have got the POSA bill. So we will need to give it enough time. Which I really find ironic, because most of the laws that civil societies, the MDCs, and many people have been speaking against, I think the MOPA, actually, the POSA rather, it is one of the most contested law, and the government is still comfortable to actually still use the POSA, because technically it's still a law which has not yet been repealed. So basically that's what they're saying, that they're not in a rush to make sure that they implement or change this law because it has not yet been fully debated. But we've got lots and lots of bills that have been fast-tracked. I don't know why only MOPA is an exception. We've seen lots of this being fast-tracked.
If you do remember when ED told Ziambi that his ministry, there's a lot of sleeping in his ministry. Like people are not really moving and working and fast-tracking. So I think this is what he was saying.
Yeah, but just out of curiosity, is it within ZANU-PF's interest to remove POSA, especially when they know that they're going to be faced with serious, should I say, imminent protests and uprisings from the civil society? We have already seen this. I think they actually need the POSA more. We can all speak about the clauses and the electoral gaps that they can usually use to make sure they find their way out. But I think technically they also still need the POSA. I think it has been a law that has been helping them unleash the police, and also it helps them unleash the military as and when they feel that there's a certain threat that is going to be threatening their also existence and their interests. So I strongly feel that that's one of the major reasons why the minister is not specifically going to be excited to implement quickly the MOPA bill. That's just me, and these are my thoughts from the Daily News. I think another interesting story as well from page number 3 from the Daily News says police have been ordered to release 1.5 million impounded maize. The Zimbabwe Republic Police has been ordered to compensate a local company 22 of its trucks that were impounded, each containing 30 tons of maize worth a total of 1.5 million at Chirundi border post. That's a very interesting story. I think they claimed that he was smuggling maize and they'd impounded 1.5 million worth of maize. So
who is it being released to?
I think to the person. It says Holab Limited Sporo Haulers Private Limited has listed Police Commissioner General Godi Matanga as one senior assistant commissioner and another senior assistant commissioner Musha Urwa of Marsh West as the respondents in the application. High Court Judge Owen Tagu ordered the unconditional release of the impounded 22 to 30-ton trucks with maize and discharged the claim for demurrage charges of 90,000 and any other expenses incurred while the maize was held. ZANU-PF will pay the cost of suit on ordinary scale, having heard the parties and read the papers filed on record. No proof has been adduced as to whom the applicant paid the said demurrage charges, and no proof of payment has been tendered save for a list of what they claim would likely be the charges, Tagu said. Interesting. So the judge has just ruled in favor of the applicant to say that the ZANU-PF should release the maize they impounded, and they should do that with the cost.
And the interesting part, who is the owner of the maize?
That company, I'm not so sure who exactly is the owner, but it's just a company that decided. But I do not know. You may know something that I don't know. Who's the owner of the maize?
No.
Probably you know something that I don't know.
No,
please
trust me, you would know. Oh no, you'd know.
Okay, I think I'll close down with ZESA debt hinders fresh power supplies. The country owes US 83 million to Mozambique hydroelectric Kahora Basa, that's HCB, it's a Mozambican-based power supply company which is owed 83 million in short. And South Africa ESCOM, which is hampering government efforts to get fresh supply of power, Energy Minister Chasi has revealed. This comes at a time when the country is grappling with power challenges and development, which has seen ZESA Holdings introducing a punishing load shedding schedule, which is significantly affecting the production. I'm sure this is what was said yesterday during the cabinet briefing that you guys also attended, to say that we owe a lot. 83 million. We owe 83 million as far as ZESA Energy is concerned. And I think most of these guys are saying, you know what, we can't give you more energy while you owe us. So it's an issue of at least clear off, pay something towards what you already owe, and then us as a nation will be able to give you more energy. So basically this is what's happening.
So moving on to the news day, it says ZANU-PF targets corrupt bigwigs. The ZANU-PF Commissariat and Youth League have called for a clean sweep of corrupt party and government bigwigs, saying all those implicated in corrupt activities should immediately be relieved of their positions because they were stalling President Emmerson Mnangagwa's efforts to rebuild the country's battered economy. Newly appointed party commissar Victor Matemadanda said the party should immediately recall all corrupt senior officials seconded to government because they were frustrating economic recovery efforts and soiling the image of the Mnangagwa administration. I'm thinking if they start, releasing people who are corrupt in the system, that is, it seems like when it comes to talking, and they have very good ideas, but when it comes to implementing, it's another thing altogether. So ZANU-PF is saying, that's what the ZANU-PF Commissariat is saying. And moving on, it says here, government splurges $1 million US dollars to re-engage the US. This is funny because at some point they said, ZANU-PF said that we didn't need the US. So now they are spending more money than the first. Remember, there's the first company that they also engaged, which they was basically paid $500,000.
Yeah, another 1 million is going to be sent just to engage the US. How much more millions do we need to do this? And this money is not going to buy or purchase any product or ZESA or medication, which Zimbabweans really need. It's just going there to engage someone so that at least it represents consultant service, so that this person represents Zimbabwe on that scale. I strongly feel that this, honestly, could have been solved in a very much different way.
It is, considering that we actually don't need them. Those are their words, not mine. So government has hired a second American consultancy firm, Avenue Strategies Global, for $1 million to lobby the United States government to drop sanctions against the Southern African nation, Newsday has learned. The hiring comes a month after President Emmerson Mnangagwa's regime splurged another $500,000 US on another American consultancy firm, Ballard Partners, to spruce up the image of the country's rulers. The owner of the consultancy firm, Brian Billard, is a top fundraiser for United States President Donald Trump. Is a top fundraiser for United States President Donald Trump for Donald Trump's election campaigns. So I don't know what happened when they consulted with Brian Billard's consultancy firm, and now they are moving on to another company which they are trying to engage the US.
I think they didn't get the desired results from Billard Association, and obviously I think this raised a lot of international attention to say, if there are not going to be any political reforms in Zimbabwe, we do not want to see the US government changing its position against Zimbabwe, because there's been a consultancy firm that is closer to Trump that has been paid off to do that. We need to see. So how it is, like American government and American Democrats, that the American president can only do so much, because remember, he's got the Republicans and the Democrats, and for his policies to be actually changed, it's not about just pleasing Donald Trump, so to say. So the American system has said, we're only going to be relaxing and changing the way we think and look at Zimbabwe if we have seen certain significant political reforms. So I think that's the whole frustration that has been going on through as far as this process is concerned.
Okay, moving on, it says MDC reloads to Zim rescue plan. The Nelson Chamisa-led MDC National Council is scheduled to meet today to finalize the party's blueprint, dubbed Reload, which spells out a plan to immediately set up for a transitional authority to rescue the country in the wake of a worsening socio-economic crisis. Party Secretary General Charlton Wende yesterday said the blueprint gives the roadmap to legitimacy. The party has refused to accept results of the last year's presidential elections and continuously called for a transitional authority. The transitional authority will also discuss and adopt the Reload blueprint. This is a document that seeks to guide us on what steps to follow in pursuit of legitimacy. That is according to Wende. So I like how the MDC operates. I would say this. They have so much faith. You see, already they are mapping their way to legitimacy on how they can do this whole transitional government. Whilst, at the same time, the other parties has not yet agreed to a transitional authority. But already they are making plans, looking forward to this transitional authority.
Definitely,
so much hope they have. I think that's what other, even MDC supporters, that's what they are holding on, hope that things will get better. I think actually every Zimbabwean is holding on to that, whether you're ZANU-PF or MDC, just hoping that things will get better. Fat cats choke ZESA. That is according to Chassis. That is another headline according to the Newsday. Energy and Power Development Minister Fortune Chassis yesterday said power utilities ZESA was struggling to service its external debt and increase power importation to alleviate the current electricity crisis. Responding to questions at a post-cabinet briefing last night, Chasi said ZESA was hamstrung by a creditors list, which has top politicians across the divide and state entities. And I quote, "We just have to pay. This is not the time for political banter or what. We have to pay. ZESA is a commercial utility that needs to survive. It is owed in excess of 1.1 billion. Yes, today the Minister of Finance, Mthuli Ncube, has indicated that he would pay 20 million RTGS dollars owed by government departments. That is a drop in the ocean," Chasi said. So
the government also owes ZESA 20 million.
It actually owes 1.1 billion.
Wow.
That's the debt that they have in excess of 1 point. And Mthuli Ncube is saying that he can only pay 20 million RTGS dollars. Yeah, this is why Chasi is saying this is like a drop in the ocean, because they owe a lot of money and this is actually not going to make any difference. Moving on, men in dock over anti-ED slur. A Mutare man has been arrested for accusing President Emmerson Mnangagwa for failing to properly run the country as he could no longer afford to buy beer. Tinashe Dembo, 29, appeared before the Magistrate Court, Tendai Mawe, on Friday, who denied him bail. The state, the state opposed bail, claiming that he was likely to abscond as he had other pending cases at the court and that he was likely to interfere with evidence. So that is the issue there.
I thought that ED also spoke against that protection from public opinion, where he said that people should be able to criticize me as and when they feel or they wish, and he didn't want that part of the law to literally protect him. Of course, that was a political statement, but I don't know how legally that also is binding to say, well, I do not want people to be necessarily sued because they've openly criticized me. I don't know. I stand to be corrected if a political statement has legal implications towards it as well. And
my question is, what kind of evidence does the court actually have against him that he might,
tamper the evidence?
Yeah.
Or he is released.
Exactly. So that's the $1 million question there. So that was it from the Newsday. So moving quickly to the Herald. The first headline.
While you are going still to Herald, I think I have something very interesting here from the news as well. Supreme Court throws out Chombo passport appeal. The Supreme Court has thrown out former Cabinet Minister Ignatius Chombo's appeal to have his passport released urgently to facilitate trip to South Africa for medical reviews. Chombo's passport was seized by an unidentified security agent on May 12 at Robert Gabriel Mugabe International Airport while intending to travel to South Africa for medical reviews. So, what goes around comes around. Chombo, he used to be a very strong ZANU-PF strong man, and they used to run systems the same way. And I wonder how Chombo is now feeling when the same party that he used to command is now denying access to his passport. Now Chombo can no longer travel, and Chombo is literally locked into Zimbabwe, and he has been denied by the Supreme Court access to his passport. A very interesting development that I've just been reading a few days back. Kasukwere, since he has left Zimbabwe, I think it should be yesterday where I read that his house is now going to be sold because he has violated his bail conditions. He should have been back, and he kept saying that he was not feeling well, and now a part of his house that he has left is surety that he's going to come back. When he got his passport released, is now going to be going under the armor. So the courts are going to be actually auctioning Kasukwere's mansion because he has refused to come back and attend court sessions. Very interesting times and developments coming through.
Very interesting times. Like Matema Danda said, you see, they are chucking out all the chaff. That is not really, that is just
not that the ZANU-PF principles and these people were also fighting against ED, but the Chombos and the Kasukwere have already left that administration a long time back. But we're still having some problems again. So I think this would just easily remind me of the question that they were working against people or criminals surrounding the president. If criminals surrounding the president are still there, I think Operation Restore League has to look around to its objectives to make sure that we work around the criminals who are also surrounding the president, because now Matema Danda and the ZANU-PF youth chairman, what's his name? Also has been sending some scathing remarks as far as having ZANU-PF bigwigs who are also collapsing the economy. I'm just speaking around the criminals surrounding the president. You can go ahead, Nico.
Okay, according to the Herald, it says government calls for collective efforts to end power crisis. So this is what we've also read from the Newsday and the Daily News, that the country is going through crippling power cuts. So government has stepped up efforts to address electricity challenges in the country, but signaled that collective efforts are required for a long-lasting solution. Addressing a press conference on the 21st cabinet meeting decision matrix yesterday, Information and Publicity Broadcasting and Services Minister Monica Mchanga said the long hours of load shedding being experienced by domestic and some commercial consumers of power were a concern to government. She said that the cabinet has received a status report on the electricity situation from Energy Minister Fortune Chasi. The report showed that the fuel supply situation remained fairly stable, she said. First of all, I don't know what she means when she says fairly stable, because fairly stable, the situation of fuel is not really fairly stable. When we can actually see queues. So I don't think if it's still fairly stable.
During a cabinet briefing,
really?
They actually came out with a mantra. Of course, it was a response to the most popular statement from Themba Mliswa. Just as a diversion to you. You can go ahead, Nika.
So that's what she said in relation to the fuel supply, and also that government is concerned about power cuts, but it's sad that government is the biggest debtor when it comes to fuel.
Its own
exactly.
Yeah,
so which is sad.
Example.
It's very sad.
1.2 billion is a lot of money.
It is. So moving on, it says US-Africa Summit boost for Zimbabwe. President Mnangagwa yesterday flew to Mozambique on the 12th edition of the US-Africa Business Summit, which provides Zimbabwe a platform to engage with United States of America and African private sector executive, international investors, and multilateral stakeholders. He was received at Maputo International Airport by Zimbabwe Ambassador to the US, Amon Mutembwa.
Meanwhile, VP Chiwenga is the acting president in the absence. You can continue with your statement.
So in an interview before leaving Robert Mugabe International Airport yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister and International Trade Minister Dr. Sbusiso Moyo said the summit was expected to witness the launch of $60 billion facility to develop Africa. As you can recall, there have been quite some development on major powers, starting with the forum in China, and which committed to invest $60 billion towards the development of Africa, he said. So $60 billion is coming our way, Tonio.
Meanwhile, VP Chiwenga is the acting president.
He rests his case.
I rest my case. VP Chiwenga is the acting president in the absence of ED. A lot of things really happen. Okay, let's stick to the news.
You just
we'll
had to
stick to the news.
You just had to say that.
Let's stick to the news.
Okay, so lastly, whilst we are in that tip that VP Chiwenga is still the acting president.
Can I just say what I want to say?
Am I going to stop you? I think you're just going to say
just
it.
Go ahead.
Okay, lastly, the Herald, it says don't ban corporal punishment. MPs. Government should revisit provisions in the Education Amendment Bill, in particular clauses that seek to ban corporal punishment and the exclusion of pregnant pupils from schools, legislators have said. Contributing during the second reading of the Education Amendment Bill, the legislators said some of the provisions had the potential of reversing the high standards that Zimbabwe had achieved in education. Bikita West MP Comrade Elias Msakwa said there was need to relook the clause that banned corporal punishment from schools as a way of instilling discipline. What's your take on corporal punishment? Because I feel like it's people have mixed feeling towards it. You know, some don't like it. Some like it.
I think I'm caught in between. I'm caught in between. Looking at it from an African perspective and a Christian perspective, they say spare the rod and spoil the child. At a certain point in time, the rod it has to be used, but I think the question is to what extent should teachers and administration you have to use the rod to make sure that they keep the child in line. I think for me that's my biggest worry. I wouldn't make it very much of a big deal if a teacher kind of like whips students in line, so long as it's done out of care, love, and concern, and they are not going to be abused, because that should not be turned into abuse. I think there's a thin line now. If so long as our administration or administrators can actually easily draw that line, but because we've seen a lot of teachers really abusing, and they've seen students being beaten up, like somebody is going to beat up your kid, you know, for a reason that nobody else knows. For me, that's a real issue of concern. But I think because of the way that we grew up and the way that we were taught and trained, we always had this spare the rod and spoil the child kind of a concept, and it really helped us. And we never got to see what we're now seeing recently, even on social media, where teachers were literally using the rod as a way to get back or give revenge or inflict pain in students. For me, that's a no-no, and I think it's criminal. But still, I strongly believe that spare the rod is spoil the child, but this has to be done with someone who can easily draw the lines between those two issues. So yeah, I'm quite clear on that.
Okay, so we can say it's a necessary evil, but not done too much, but just done appropriately. Yeah. Okay, so that was from the Newsday and the Herald.
Our sports guy is not here today, but of course it is almost there. I think these are the leading headlines across all the sports newspapers. The Warriors officially, they've landed in Egypt, and Zimbabweans are going to be opening up the official AFCON Cup this Friday. We are opening it up. The world over is going to be looking at the first match, in Zimbabwe are in a big hot soup, or the most entertaining game. For us to be becoming the openers, I'm not a soccer fan, but trust me, I'll be watching over this, I'll be looking, and I need to see how best we're going to perform. I think a draw for us will be good enough. It will be a good spoiler. We need to get something out of this. But of course, our team, our Warriors, are so much confident of coming out of a win. I'm not a soccer fanatic,
do you have a generator at home? Because you're going to need it. 21st of June.
By Friday, is Shimga still going to be active? I'm just asking.
I don't.
Does he get the motorcade if he's the acting president?
I would like to exercise my Fifth Amendment, Tonio. Yeah. I'm not going to say anything lest it's incriminating. Okay.
My name is Tonio. It's been a pleasure to have you guys on this show, and it's always a lot of fun and exciting to have you guys. If we're going to be reading over scripts, I think for the next few seconds, let's just do justice to all guys who are watching us live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Let's just get too close over to the comment. Hebet Gafa Chikukwa. Should I read out your comment, Hebet? Hebet.
It seems like a okay. All right.
Anzi chaora chinichi ndi Hebet. Anzi na Hebet chaora chinichi. Kanzi na Talita TC Dube itai gaga mabando zari kudura. SJ chaoga zvanzi achauraiwa applicant uyu kutomakisa ake brutal force. I'm sure he was talking about the applicant over the maize issue, where he actually won the court case. So these are very few comments that you're having live from our Facebook page. We do thank you so much for taking your time to join us through right here. I would have wanted to discuss about what I wanted to discuss about, but I've been told not to discuss what I wanted to. But this is our show. We should be able to discuss what we want to discuss about. We'll have a show. We'll have a show one of these days, and you have to discuss about anything you feel like you want to discuss about. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tonio. It's been a pleasure to have you right here, and I've been enjoying behind the scenes. I think that's where I belong, not on the set.
And my name is Nicole Maziwa. Thank you so much, Tonio, for being here. We love your comments. They're very colorful.
I'm going behind the set.
Do not. You are going to sit there. So from me and the crew behind the scenes, thank you so much for watching TechMake TV. Remember, if you haven't liked our Facebook page or our Twitter, follow us on Twitter and like our Facebook page, and also subscribe on our YouTube so that whenever we're live, you just get the notification.